Hello, everybody. This is Helena Hutton with Cummins. Welcome to Season 3 of the Backstage podcast. We have seen firsthand how people, businesses, and ideas can strengthen our communities. Cummins embraces its pivotal role in addressing its environmental impact and supporting the communities where we are located. By partnering with others, we can explore new opportunities together. Join Cummins, NAWBO-Indy, and our guests as we share stories and ideas on how to shape the world. Along with my partner, Leanne Richardson from NAWBO-Indy, we look forward to making this a journey for all of us to experience together. Thank you for listening.
Welcome to this episode of the Backstage Pass podcast. I'm Leanne Richardson from NAWBO-Indianapolis. Thank you for joining us. In this episode, we'll hear about the Cummins sustainability story, where we have come from, where we are today, and where we're going, and how this will affect the supply chain. Helena, I'll turn it over to you so we can get started.
Hi, this is Helena Hutton. I'm here today with Brian Mormino, who leads our environmental sustainability program globally for Cummins, and also my colleague Leanne Richardson, who's the executive director and leads the National Association of Women Business Owners. And I think you all know her as kind of my partner in crime and finding out all the different things that companies and businesses are doing all over the world as we explore all those journeys. So we're going to get started with Brian. I know you want to hear who our guest is today and hear from Brian. Brian, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us out of the today sunny state of Indiana. So Brian, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here with you today. I've been with the company for almost 18 years. I have a period of time when I worked in the government before that. And yes, part of my role is in environmental sustainability, but what does that really mean? I'm responsible for making sure that we're looking out into the future, looking at various trends, understanding regulations, where they're coming, and making sure we're doing that through a lens of how do we make this planet around for future generations, which I care about personally. I'm a dad of 3 kids. And so it's neat that I get to work for a company where both my personal interests about the future of this world, as well as the interests of the business, are aligned.
Thank you, Brian. Can you share too, what's the lens you look from? So Cummins is, as we all know, is a power company, many engineers, all kinds of experts in different areas. But how did you stumble across Cummins in the middle of Columbus, Indiana, and then find an area where you could impact not just Cummins, but so many different industries because of our focus and goal of working with the environment?
Yeah, I went to Washington, D.C. actually to work with government first, just on a personal story. I've always been interested in public service, and it seemed like that's a place where you could do good. And you could do that by leveraging partnerships and government and impact public policy. While I was working in the government, I got to meet folks with Cummins, and it just stuck out to me as a different company. I heard and met with various leaders, and they were focused on doing the right thing. They were focused on working and collaborating with others. And again, growing the business, but doing so in a way that is sustainable and does protect the planet for future generations, and also strengthens the communities where they reside. That became obvious to me. So when they came knocking on my door and said, "Hey, would you want to do what you're doing today, but do it as part of Cummins?" It was an interesting suggestion that I at first said no, but the more that I thought about this company and the platform by which you can do good through business, it just seemed like a great place to work. And that's what I found, because immediately as I joined the company, we started talking about what more action should we be doing on the environment? What is our responsibility? And this is back in 2006. And at that time, we set our first public goal for greenhouse gas reductions from our facilities. Yes, 18 years ago, we set our first goal because it was around what more can and should we do from an energy and greenhouse gas standpoint. And then along that journey, we've just continued to build upon making sure that all the good things that we do for our customers and for the world in terms of the work that they have, we do that with less and less environmental impact.
So did it start even before that?
Yeah, there's a long history and long before me as well. So one of our longtime leaders in the company, J. Irwin Miller, was way back in the 60s and 70s. He had this notion that we're only as strong as the communities where we reside. And I think you got to start there, because this is not just these are the headlines, somebody's pushing us to do it. I think you got to start from a standpoint of knowing that it's part of us, right? It's our values. It's who we are. And so he didn't talk about sustainability. I don't even know if anyone used that word, environmental sustainability, back then, but he said, we're only as strong as the communities where we reside. Well, obviously, if your communities don't have green grass, if you don't have clean air to breathe, if you don't have good water to drink, clean water, then you're not very strong. You're not strong as an individual, as a family, and as a business. Well, that foundational work led to, for the first time in 2003, for us to start talking about and committing to our environmental progress. And then 2006, setting our first facility and energy greenhouse gas goal that I mentioned, moving on to establishing a more comprehensive plan that we set dealing with energy, water, and waste across multiple areas for 2020, and then culminating in our current plan called Planet 2050. Sets the long-term trajectory for where we want to go all the way out several decades, but then also with 9 specific goals that are about here and now, where we can all get motivated and organized around having an impact by 2030.
So Brian, numbers, you've thrown out a couple numbers, and when I watch TV, I see Daimler, or I see, Mercedes, or I see all these companies say, they throw out these numbers, 2030, 2040, 2050. And as a consumer, I'm thinking, what does that mean? And then as a business and working with companies, I know it means something as well. So you started with 2050, Planet 2050. Why is that important? What is it about 2050?
Yeah, when you have a stakeholder approach like we do as a company, you really want to make sure that you're looking out at the landscape, that you're talking to all of these partners, whether that's government, experts in their key areas, customers, suppliers, community leaders. When you have that whole stakeholder view and you have your head up, your eyes open, your ears, you're listening, you start to hear a lot about trends, a lot about here's where the world is going. See, you hear scary things, frankly, like by 2050, we're projected to have more plastic by weight than fish in our oceans. I always pause a little bit, even when I say that stat, because that doesn't sound like the direction we want to go. But multiple trends and points like that, the scientists have pointed to for 2050. Well, as we were thinking about what's next in our step, it said, well, let's follow the science. Let's anchor to this milestone of 2050 that everyone else is talking about. And in our 100th anniversary, which was in 2019, we announced Planet 2050, which was, okay, let's look out. Now, that's a scary thing for a company to do. Like, we all get that, right? To say that we're going to set in 2019 the direction where we're headed over the next 3 decades, when often we talk about our results on a quarterly basis, can be a scary world. But if we don't know where we're headed, how can we know what we're supposed to do today and even in the near term? So setting that long-term direction in a world that's increasingly complex. And when there's so much change and complex and different factors coming in, you have to know the goalposts. And that's why we chose 2050.
Oh, go ahead, Leanne.
No, I just wanted to know, I've also heard about the 2030. And so how is that different? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So embedded in the 2050 plan And I should say that the 2050 plan is about making sure that communities are better because we are there. It's also about making sure that we're doing our part to address air emissions and greenhouse gases. And it's also about using natural resources in the most sustainable way. So again, this long-term path with 3 focus areas: communities, air, greenhouse gases, and natural resources. But if I only talk about 2050, there's multiple people, including myself, that might say, well, I'm not going to probably be working in 30 years. At least I don't think my wife would allow me to do anymore. And so you got to have something tangible in the near term. You got to have something that everybody can sink their teeth into to address. And that's especially important when you're talking about tens of thousands of engineers. You got to be able to measure it. You got to track it. And when you can do that, you can improve it. And so that's why we established 9 specific, quantifiable 2030 goals to make sure we're doing everything we can this decade in terms of where we're going longer term.
And Brian, that makes me think, as a fellow Cummins employee, about how the culture is impacting these initiatives. Because you pointed out, we have quarterly goals, which are often financial targets, and certainly taking into account our stakeholders and shareholders. But where I see a lot of passion and growth is our employees. And you started talking about, which I experienced as well at Cummins, the culture, and that it preceded both of us, that people were very involved in all kinds of social issues at Cummins. And being one of the only global engine makers where we have a product, that's unique, how do we survive for over 100 years if people don't want to be in the beautiful city of Columbus, Indiana? I mean, you moved from DC, I moved from Chicago, and yet, we stay and we're all committed to not just the financial results and the success of the company, but also how we influence our corporate footprint all over the world. And I find that meeting with, for example, Leanne and a lot of businesses, that the first thing they say is, "Oh my gosh, you work at Cummins. That is so exciting. Cummins is such a great company." And I wonder, Leanne, if you want to give us some color too on what you see with respect to all the businesses that want to work with Cummins and why. And Brian's, talking about the sustainability side, but it's not just us doing it alone, right? We're looking for partners in so many sectors: government, businesses, employees, so many people that have to drive this to be successful. And Leanne, I don't know if you have any thoughts on how we're going to market, interacting with others, and how we're attracting, this amazing brand and experience where people want to work with Brian and want to work with Cummins and want to work with us.
Well, speaking from experience, I can tell you it was a wonderful company to align. In my past life, I did a lot of work with Cummins, and it was a wonderful company to align with because of their goals, mission, their support of small businesses, especially their collaboration. So it was just an amazing company to align yourself with. And I developed a 20-year relationship with them. And everyone wants to be a part of an environment like that. So I can speak from personal experience. That's why and I'm sure many, many, many others want to align themselves with Cummins.
Yeah, I
And
think about it, and I hope this is true from an external side. It was what attracted me to Cummins, and it is why I stayed. That the values and our purpose as a company is not just something we stick on a wall or stick on a website. It comes to life. I mean, I see it regularly. I remember back years ago, now, we were contemplating, what do we do to have a greater impact on greenhouse gas reductions? How can we do more in terms of our facilities and operations, and also try to have an impact, outside of our walls? And we engaged, a company came to us and a community for a wind farm that they wanted to put in. And they said, this is something we want to do, and we'd love to have a partner who will commit to purchase power from a wind farm over a period of time, because then that provides the financial assurances and then the development can occur. And I remember working through this. This was novel for Cummins. And I know other companies or others have done it, but it was novel for us. The interesting thing is where the conversation starts with our top leaders at the company and our board of directors. It's not, should we do something? It's, what are we going to do? And that sounds like a small thing, but it is everything. Because you're not trying to justify that we should do something on the environment or do something with climate change or water. It's what makes the most sense. And in fact, the calculation that won a lot of people over in terms of engaging in what we call a power purchase agreement for this wind farm far out into the future was, could we do better spending those dollars somewhere else? And because the answer was no, you cannot reduce more greenhouse gas emissions to that level, especially in Indiana, given its coal-fired power use, so you can have a broader societal impact. We ran all the math and calculations and looked at the financial benefit and the community benefit and everything else. It was a, yes, this is the right way to take this action on. But I got over a huge speed bump that many others, just because everyone was immediately with saying, what do we do? What's the best thing to do? And I think that is, that makes all the difference, like I said.
Brian, I think about the impact on the planet that we spoke about in communities, and it's not just the US, right? And you
No.
gave the example of the wind farms, and we're doing things in India, China, Latin America, UK that relates to even solar. What are your thoughts on how Cummins, again, that's the location that we're in, the size we're in the industry, yet we have tentacles and we're impacting communities and environments all over the world. This isn't just a US initiative, right?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. And I've talked about a variety of our facilities and operations programs thus far on this podcast. And where we do that is energy, water, waste programs all over the world. And in fact, my team manages a central environmental capital fund that looks at the most cost-effective ways that we can get improvements in all three of those areas everywhere: China, India, Brazil, Mexico, all across Europe, US. It's widespread. What makes the most sense, and how do we, again, do our part in those areas? So you're gonna do more investments, for example, in a water stressed area than you will, say, in Columbus, Indiana, for example. In Fulton, India, we're going to do a lot more, for example. But I would also say that the extent of our actions go far beyond our facilities and operations. We make things. And in fact, we make power. And the power that we produce for our customers is to do the work that they need to for this world. So it's about delivering goods, maybe our food for our dinner tonight. It'll be for building bridges. It'll be for keeping hospitals running. So that's the value we provide every single day. We do that through our products. Now, those products go in 190 countries all around the world.
Mhm.
In fact, I didn't know that there were 190 countries. There are 190 countries. There's actually more than that. But that's an interesting point that I learned. But we're in 190 of them. And so our products are all in these applications all over the world doing things that we depend upon every single day. And our environmental strategy is the same as our business strategy, and we call that Destination Zero. It's about how do we move providing that power, but do it with less and less environmental impact all around the whole world. Again, that's incredibly exciting because it's a challenge everywhere in the world. Every single application, every single region has a different need, different demands that are tough for us to provide, but that's our expertise. And because we not only know what our customers need and partner with them for what the work they have to do, we do it through this environmental lens and commitment, because that's what our purpose is as a company. It's making people's lives by powering a more prosperous world. Again, prosperity, but that requires a clean environment. And that's what we're doing every day. But it is, Elena, definitely, like you said, everywhere. It's global.
So you said destination zero. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yes, no doubt. It's our product strategy. And it's going from where we are today as a planet, frankly, and Cummins providing what it does through the society can we get towards that zero emissions from a greenhouse gas standpoint, also other emissions. That journey is a destination, right? So it's the destination to go from our products today to zero. Now that's audacious. There's no doubt about it. But I don't know. We're about those things. We're about innovation. Long before in 1919, when there was a patent out there from Rudolph Diesel and Clessie Cummins, a mechanic and inventor, got the patent and created Cummins, there wasn't a whole lot of diesel engines out there either. So that history of invention and innovation is how we've gotten to where we at now, 105-year-old company. And it's about how we will go in the future, just that innovation looks different. It goes from how do you advance internal combustion engines on diesel to a other wide range of fuels, natural gas, renewable diesel, gasoline, biofuels, lots of different options to reduce those emissions here and now, through to a bridge that includes things like maybe having hydrogen in an internal combustion engine, using more hybrids, all the way through to the portfolio that we have as a company, which is battery electric and fuel cell electric applications. So our destination is working with our customers in terms of getting all the way to zero for the work that they need to do. And that's innovation. And that's the core of who we are as a company.
So for somebody like me who's listening in today, how do we check up on the progress? Do you do anything where you kind of let the listeners hear or see how Cummins is, sticking to goals, meeting their objectives? So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, one way is through our website. You will find directly on there sustainability progress reports and a variety of other information. We have been just a core principle of the work that we do on the environment is to make sure that we are open and transparent. And by being open and transparent about the challenges we have, the progress we're making, we think that we can bring others along with us and make sure also that it does hold us a bit accountable. Back in 2006, when we set the facility greenhouse gas goal, way back then, we did have a discussion about whether it should be public. And we landed in the right place, which is, yes, it should be public. If it's a real goal, we should tell the world about it so they hold us accountable to it as well. And then all the way through the layers, that it's my job to do certain pieces and it's Helena's job to do pieces. It's all across the company. So internally and externally, let's be consistent. And so with that principle in mind, you'll see a long history of disclosures that continue on a regular basis. They all have acronyms that are hard to understand, but there's many different acronyms of reports, and you can find those. They're available. We track progress. And like I said, it's not all perfect because that's the real world, and we're going to tell it as it is.
That makes me think about what others can do to help us in the journey. Often when I show up in a lot of the different external forums related to, for example, supplier diversity, I have people come up. I think recently somebody came up with a Cummins diesel engine record, and it was a song that was published, and it was about Cummins engines. So I consistently hear people get excited and talk to me about diesel, Cummins engines. And that's what they know. And so we try to share, and I know a lot of us talk about, with respect to the platforms, we do other things besides diesel. And we have an entity now that we refer to as Accelera that is helping to lead us in new directions with technology and platforms. I see that as a challenge. And I wonder, Brian, or Leanne, certainly what our thoughts are on how do we let people know in real time? Because we have suppliers that we're partnering with and companies and government entities, and we're out there doing all these amazing things. We're investing and delivering on solutions, but I still get hugs, because they want to, talk to me about their Cummins diesel engine. So how do we start to change that dialogue so that when we talk about these audacious goals, which we've had and we continue to have, which gets us all excited, about Cummins, how do you all see that we can change that? I have my thoughts, which is, continuing to talk like today on the podcast about all the great things that we offer and why Cummins is a great place and a great partner in more than 190 countries. But what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that it's a challenge. It is a challenge within the company to communicate about all the work that we're doing, whether whatever function you're in or wherever you're located around the world. And I think about how can we do a better job there, but I can't even communicate well with my kids. I think in a way we're on information overload constantly. Like we have our phones in front of us, but we still don't necessarily communicate well. Like we're getting more information than we've ever had access to, yet we're not communicating. Maybe we're getting data and things at us. And so it is a challenge. I think there's a few things that sort through that well. The first one is that there is a need for partnerships. And when there's a need, you're not dragging people along, right? People recognize that we need each other. Cummins needs suppliers. We need customers. They also need us because the goals that we have and the challenges that we have as a planet in terms of, again, greenhouse gas, water, waste, those aspects, you cannot deliver on your own. It takes working with others to develop system approaches, to really collaborate together towards the type of change that's needed. So I might want to reduce single-use plastics. Cummins, let's reduce single-use plastics. Well, guess what? I better have good engagement with our supply base about how to do that. And I can't just say, plants, our facilities, you guys just need to reduce your single-use plastics. Well, guess what? We're shipping a bunch of stuff to them. And at the same time, I'm sure our customers want that. So there's this whole value chain of where we need to talk and think through all of the different players involved to really partner together. But I think we're recognizing that more as a society and as an industry. So need is number one. And then I think the second thing that we could get better at is being targeted. What specifically do we need? Not help me on environmental sustainability. Help me solve climate change, right? I agree, but what do you do? What specifically do you want to do? I mean, back to that one example, let's reduce single-use plastics in here, or let's reduce the carbon content in terms of some of the metal that we're purchasing. Lots of different opportunities, but if we can be very focused, maybe even a specific area for Cummins business, but also a specific problem that we want to collaborate and solve, I think we can make great progress.
I agree. I think that's going to be the key, and especially bringing young or smaller businesses along to help collaborate. That's going to, kind of help to begin to spread the message. Plus, we're at a visual age, so people having a dashboard to look at or benchmarks to say, hey, look how they're doing. We need to be doing this same thing is going to be helpful. I mean, this really is what we're doing for our children and grandchildren. So they're probably going to be the ones pushing us to, really adopt a lot of the things that we're seeing now.
Yeah. So I think we've touched on so many things, from issues that we're doing and problems we're solving in many countries. not just for Cummins with respect to the products we sell, but for our employees and our partners in those regions. And I'm encouraged, to stay at Cummins and continue to give back where I can, because I feel like I make a difference at Cummins, and I feel like that difference is appreciated. Brian and Leanne, in closing this podcast and this discussion, because I feel, validated on what we're doing and the work we're doing, and it's exciting. Do you all have any kind of final thoughts for the folks that may be listening saying, well, I want to work with Cummins? Because I don't know about you all. As soon as I go to a meeting or a conference or a speaking engagement, the first thing, people want to know is, how do I work with you all? This is exciting. Cummins is doing exciting things, and I want to be a part of it. So do you all have any thoughts and parting thoughts, for that follow-up question? And Brian, how can I contribute? I want to be a part of this.
Yeah, I want to hear from Leanne first. Does she have
Okay.
she have some recommendations for us?
Well, so let's just be honest. We're an association and we have members. So we really work hard to develop relationships that allow our members to walk into a room and be able to walk up to Helena and say, hey, I want to do business with Cummins. So from my perspective, just showing up is going to be the first way to, really be able to take advantage of these types of things. So now feel free to add to that.
But wait, Leanne, we just had the UK trade mission. So Leanne, for example, facilitated a trade mission of women businesses from the United Kingdom that came to the US, and they wanted to meet with companies like Cummins. And we had companies that were plastics companies and all kinds of companies that said, wait, I'm doing this in the UK. I heard about Cummins, and some of them didn't even know about our Darlington operations and others. So they came to Indiana to meet us and to talk about what they can do as a partner. So Leanne, you have a rich, fertile ground of folks that are solving problems, not just in the US, but the UK and other places. And they're excited about understanding what's that connection point, as you pointed out, to share what they're doing and for us to be aware of it and potentially partner.
Yes, and thank you for your support of that mission coming in. Helena was amazing with providing insight. So.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's just an example of bringing folks along, and really making a difference and taking that incremental step forward, or stepping into a gap and committing. I think we all have that, and we all have a really important choice to make. When I think about what we're doing and what motivates me every day, is I basically have two choices. And it's in the context of the trends and things that we were talking about to look out to 2050 already. And I think you can understand all of the pressures that we have on this. For example, in only 50 years, I think we have quadrupled our material use as a world. That's a lot. That's staggering. And I think there's a lot of staggering stats and challenges and issues. And so that leaves us to two choices. The first choice is where you are overwhelmed, incapacitated even. So what? I have this plastic bottle. I can just throw it away. I'm just one person. I don't need to recycle as my family. That's all I have. I'm just one business, one entity. I mean, what impact can I have when we're talking about the planet? And I think that is one choice. And a lot of us probably make that choice if we're really honest about it on a daily basis. But I would just say there's a different choice to be made. And that choice is one where you sit where you are and you understand the incredible power that you have, and to leverage those relationships. And so that's the platform that I have, that I am incredibly excited and motivated and focused on every single day, because that means that it's not just Brian, it's not just my family, it is 70, 80,000 global Cummins employees. And can they link arms with 190 governments of countries around? And can they link arms with tens of thousands of suppliers and all of those customers? And you start linking those arms and linking those arms. And guess what? You are building momentum for change to have a measurable, significant impact on the planet. And if that's not exciting, I don't know what is, but that's what I get up every single day to do. And I just hope more and more people find that gap. They step into it, they commit, they reach out to us. Let's find something to work on because we can do it together.
Well said, Brian.
I was gonna
I didn't even want to comment because I thought, okay, I don't want to take away from the message because it was a very strong, clear message. And I'm so grateful for your time today to come and talk to us and our listeners in many countries so that they can see that it's not just something in the US for a US company. It's something that we're leading all over the world and they can be a part of it. And you made that point very clear. And thank you so much for sharing.
Well, thank you.
Everybody needs to be like Brian.
Well, thanks a lot for the opportunity. I just hope, I hope and know we'll keep moving forward. So thanks so much for your time, and we look forward to hearing from folks.
Stay tuned until we chat again and share your story at supplierdiversity@cummins.com. We want to hear from you.